totally backward beliefs or something like that. You know, I didn't expect him to be like a young individual like us.
Sufism basically, as far as I know, was an offshoot of, let's say, Islamic mysticism, and it's quite old. I would say that within about 100 years of the arrival of Islam on the world scene, Sufism also started springing up in various places. The first reference to Sufism comes as far back as the 8th century. Yeah, its beginnings were very humble. It was begun by these sort of philosophers and men who used to renounce the world and become fakir. Some people say that they were followers of the Prophet, the original Muslims who used to help the Prophet in his endeavors from the very beginning and were the Safwa, or the chosen ones. So the Sufis had a different view of God. They said that God is more like a friend or a lover, you know. He's not like some guy who gives justice, and, you know, maybe he's not even a he, you know. They said that it's probably an entity which is, considering that we have love in our hearts and the way he made us, so he or she must be like us. And because he's created us, let's say that he needs us as much as we need him, and hence we must love his creation as equals. That's what the Sufis said. So they believed, from that of course came the fact that you should respect all religions and cultures, etc., 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 you know. And so today we see that Sufism is more like a spiritual movement. You find that anybody can go to a dargah, you know, anybody can go listen to the music, anybody can adopt Sufism regardless of their religion.
The atmosphere at the Nizamuddin Dargah was completely different from that at Jama Masjid. For one thing, Hazrat Nizamuddin died in 1325, which is almost 400 years before Shah Jahan came to Delhi. Hence, his Dargah is much older than the mosque. For another, it is rooted in the Sufi tradition, which has been considered as the breakaway group by the Sunni traditionalists who take care of the Jama Masjid.
So guys, this is the tomb and mausoleum of Hazrat Amir Khusro Rahmatullah Alayh. Okay. Now, Khusro, for your information, means king of the world. So this is obviously a title which he took on at some point. Yeah. And he was also called Tutiye-Hind, or the parrot of India, because he was such a great writer and he was such a great musician, such a great inventor, that he is credited with a lot of things. But I'll tell you a little bit about him before. He was born in Patiali, which is in Uttar Pradesh now, yeah, in the 1200s. And he was born to a Turkish father and an Indian mother. Okay, so he was very well versed in several languages because, you know, he was born in nobility, right? And of course he joined the court and he became a courtier, etc. But, you know, his real love was always music, and because he was taught music as a child, his real love was always writing, poetry, etc., etc., right? So we find that he served 6 emperors, yeah, but he only had one true master, as he called it, and that was Hazrat Nizamuddin Auliya Rahmatullah Alayh. When he was with Hazrat Nizamuddin Auliya, it's almost like he lived a double life, you know. And often he said that I want to renounce the world too, become like you and become a fakir. And then the Auliya would tell him, no, your way is not fakiri, your way is not renunciation, your way is the way of the world, because through you my legacy too will live on. So you don't change, otherwise we don't become complete, you know, if we become like each other. So the link breaks, you know. So this was the kind of relationship they had, you know. And obviously it went beyond everything. It was a kind of love which was so strong that when the Auliya died, it broke his heart and he too passed away, you know. So this is the legacy of Hazrat Amir Khusro.
छाप तिलक सब छीनी रे मोसे नैना मिला के, छाप तिलक सब छीनी रे मोसे नैना मिला के, छाप तिलक सब छीनी रे मोसे नैना मिला के, मिला के मोसे नैना मिला
As we entered Jama Masjid, this is the first thing we saw. There were a lot of birds over there. There were like huge amounts of pigeons, and people used to just keep chasing them around. Okay, we went to that Zohaib's house, and this is the view from his terrace. So you can see Jama Masjid here. And this is how crowded the streets.
So this is actually the view from the Jama Masjid into overlooking the streets.
Okay, this is all of us at Kareem. And this is with the food. This is Shashwat, all excited after buying the cap. And this is Sarab, Shashwat and Binoy looking out. This is them again.
When we went out there, frankly, we were pretty scared because, I felt that I was Hindu and he was Sikh, and both of us were kind of afraid of going to a mosque. We didn't think like we would be welcome out there. But as we started getting used to the environment, as people started getting used to us being there, it all changed. We started, we felt like we weren't that out of place. And as the Maulana Sahab told us that if Islam was a religion in which was against peace and only promoted violence, they wouldn't greet each other with a greeting such as Assalamu alaikum, which essentially means peace be upon you. And you thank the other person by saying Walaikum Assalam, which means peace be upon you as well.
What I remember best of the workshop is probably the game we played, where we had to react to different statements. Because that just showed us how closed we were, even though we thought we were open-minded. How much our views about religion is based on stereotypes.
When the Maulana Sahab had come over to our school to speak to us, the fact that he came over and he invited us to come and pray with him, that itself, I think that for me that moment was the biggest in this whole workshop.
In Chandni Chowk, I never imagined that such things even existed, when people could just control an entire bunch of pigeons with a stick and make them come back to like a tiny rooftop when the place is so congested.
I like the way Professor Chisti explained everything, and I thought it would be mostly dwelling over architecture and its concepts, but it wasn't, and he went into time and its dimension and everything, which made the whole thing pretty intriguing and interesting.
When the Qawwali singers sang in the Dargah, what really struck me was how they started off with different parts, and it seemed really unrelated, but the thing is, when you put it all together, it really sounded beautiful.
What stays in my mind is this memory of the boys buying the caps at Jama Masjid and putting them on their heads and walking down the streets with complete abandon. It was really beautiful to see. For me also, what was lovely was watching the students and their perspective develop and grow through the workshop.